The desert wind, a coarse whisper, carried the scent of dry earth and distant mountains. 25 women, dressed in the dark, practical uniforms of the Hafizan-e Taharat, moved with a practiced, silent grace. Their faces were grim, their breaths plumed white in the pre-dawn chill. This was their escape. This was their betrayal. Captain Marjan Rahimi had always believed in the unshakable purity of her purpose. For 38 years, every fiber of her being, every decision she made, had been a testament to the divine mandate of the Islamic Republic. She was born and raised in Mashhad, a city steeped in reverence and tradition. Its golden dome of the Imam Reza Shrine a constant shimmering reminder of faith. Her childhood home in the Firdausi district, a modest apartment filled with the scent of saffron and simmering gourmet sabzi, resonated with the quiet piety of her parents. They taught her devotion. They taught her obedience. They taught her that the outside world, particularly the decadent West, sought to corrupt the very soul of Iran, and especially its women. From a young age, Marjan had been drawn to service. She saw the Basij, the volunteer paramilitary force, not as an oppressive arm of the state, but as the vigilant guardians of Iranian society. They were the ones who protected the innocent, preserved moral integrity, and ensured the sanctity of families. She joined the Basij at 18, a fierce dedication burning within her. Her intelligence and unwavering commitment quickly set her apart. She excelled in training, demonstrating a rare blend of strategic thinking and disciplined adherence to doctrine. She rose through the ranks, eventually selected for an elite, highly sensitive unit, known internally as the Guardians of Purity, the Hafizan-e Taharat. This was no ordinary Basij patrol. This was a specialized, all-female intelligence and enforcement unit, operating largely plainclothes, tasked with identifying and neutralizing perceived threats to public morality, particularly among women. They tracked dissent. They monitored social gatherings. They intervened where Western influence was deemed most pernicious. Marjan became a captain, commanding a unit of 24 other women, all handpicked for their intelligence, loyalty, and skill. Each woman was a mirror of Marjan's own initial conviction, believing their work was a sacred duty. They were mothers, sisters, daughters, who saw themselves as protecting the very essence of Iranian womanhood from corruption. They met in unmarked safe houses across Mashhad, their operations meticulously planned, their surveillance precise. They understood the nuances of female social networks, the subtle codes of defiance, the whispers of discontent. Marjan was proud of them. She cultivated a fierce loyalty among her women, fostering a sense of shared purpose, a sisterhood dedicated to upholding the values of the revolution. She considered them her family, her sisters in arms in a crucial, holy war for the soul of the nation. Her own family life mirrored this devotion. Her husband, Reza, a thoughtful, quiet man who worked in the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance, understood the demands of her work. He respected her dedication. Their daughter, Laleh, now 12, was the center of Marjan's universe. Marjan saw Laleh's future as intertwined with the strength and moral integrity of the Islamic Republic. Every enforcement action, every arrest, every late night spent analyzing surveillance footage, Marjan rationalized as building a safer, purer world for Laleh. She wanted Laleh to grow up strong, principled, shielded from the temptations that, she was taught, eroded societies from within. Laleh, with her bright, questioning eyes, often asked Marjan about her work. Marjan would speak of protecting Iran, of serving God, of ensuring that girls like Laleh could flourish in safety and honor. Laleh, in her innocence, would often carve small wooden figures during her free time, little birds and flowers, symbols of hope. Marjan kept one such wooden bird, a tiny, intricately carved Laleh, in her uniform pocket. It was a tangible link to her daughter, a constant reminder of why she served, a small, smooth anchor in the tempest of her demanding life. She truly believed she was protecting her daughter's future by enforcing the rules. This belief was her foundation, strong and unyielding, built brick by brick over decades of service, reinforced by daily affirmations of state media, by sermons in the mosque, by the very fabric of her existence in Mashhad. Her unit was disciplined. Her unit was righteous. Her unit was the shield. The autumn of 1401 brought a different kind of fervor to Mashhad. The protests, sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini, had spread like wildfire. They were different this time, louder, more defiant. and many of the faces on the streets were young women, shedding their hijabs, shouting slogans Marjan had always considered blasphemous. Her unit, the Hafizan-e Taharat, was deployed extensively. They worked round the clock, identifying organizers, gathering intelligence on protest routes, and conducting arrests. Marjan felt the weight of the moment. This was a critical test for the Republic. This was the moment to reaffirm the core values, to reassert order. She pushed her women hard, reminding them of their sacred duty. One crisp evening, under the pale light of a street lamp near the bustling Vakilabad Boulevard, Marjan's unit moved to apprehend a group of young women distributing leaflets. The scene quickly turned chaotic. Chants of Zan Zendagi Azadi echoed through the narrow street. Marjan's women, operating in plain clothes, blended into the crowd, then moved with ruthless efficiency. They targeted a young woman, perhaps 19 or 20, with fiery eyes and a cascade of dark hair escaping her loosely worn rusari. This girl, whose name Marjan would later learn was Zara, was shouting the loudest, her voice raw with passion. Marjan herself moved to restrain her, feeling the girl's surprising strength, her sheer desperation. Zara fought, twisted, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. The arrest was swift, by the book. Zara and 2 other girls were quickly secured and transported to a temporary holding facility in a disused Basij annex on the outskirts of the city. The facility was a grim, utilitarian space, bare concrete walls, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The smell of stale dust and disinfectant hung heavy in the air. Marjan's unit was responsible for processing female detainees. They were trained to maintain a certain decorum, a veneer of Islamic dignity, even during interrogations. They were women dealing with women. It was a point of pride, a distinction from the male-dominated IRGC intelligence cells. Marjan oversaw the initial questioning of Zara. The girl was still defiant, refusing to give names, refusing to recant her slogans. Her eyes, even with fear clouding them, still burned with an unyielding fire. Marjan tried a gentler approach, then a firmer one, explaining the gravity of Zara's actions, the consequences. Zara merely shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin, resolute line. Hours passed. The other 2 girls were cooperative, eventually giving details about their friends, their meeting spots. Zara remained silent. Marjan felt a growing frustration, but also a strange, unsettling respect for the girl's tenacity. It was nearing midnight when Major Amir Shahin, a notoriously brutal IRGC intelligence officer from Tehran, arrived. He was a man Marjan distasted, a swaggering figure with cold, hard eyes and a dismissive air towards women in authority. He strode into the makeshift interrogation room without knocking, his heavy boots echoing on the concrete. He surveyed Zara, then Marjan. "Still nothing, Captain Rahimi?" His tone was laced with condescension. Marjan felt her jaw tighten. "She is resisting, Major. We are employing standard protocols." Shaheen scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "Standard protocols are for school children. We need results." He then looked at Marjan's unit, gathered outside the room, a clear, dismissive gesture. "Leave us. All of you. Now." Marjan opened her mouth to protest. The women of Hafizan-e Taharat were the only ones authorized to handle female detainees. It was policy. It was the rule. But Shaheen's glare was absolute. His rank was absolute. "That's an order, Captain," he snarled. Marjan hesitated, a flicker of defiance in her eyes, then swallowed. She nodded curtly to her women. "Outside, all of you." She felt a sick knot in her stomach. Her unit reluctantly filed out, their faces a mixture of confusion and suppressed anger. Marjan was the last one out, her hand lingering on the doorframe, a sense of unease settling heavy over her. The heavy steel door clanged shut. Marjan stood just outside, rigid, her back to the door, trying to compose herself. She felt a profound shame, an insult to her unit's professionalism. And then it started. A muffled shout from Shaheen, a sharp, cracking sound. And then, a gasp. A strangled cry, not a defiant yell, not a scream of anger. It was a sound Marjan knew, a sound no woman should ever make. The sound of pain, pure, unadulterated terror. It was Zara. Her cries grew louder, sharper, punctuated by dull thuds. Marjan's breath hitched. Her hand instinctively went to her uniform pocket, gripping the small wooden lale her daughter had carved. The cries continued, each one a hammer blow to Marjan's carefully constructed world. This wasn't interrogation. This was something else. This was brutality. Her stomach churned. She felt a sickening wave of nausea. Her unit members clustered around her looked at her, their faces etched with horror. Their eyes, usually so sharp and unwavering, were now wide, questioning. One of her lieutenants, Zara Karimi, a woman she had trained for years, met her gaze. Zara Karimi's eyes pleaded, silently asking, "Captain, what do we do?" Marjan could do nothing. She was frozen. Shaheen had ordered her out. Her hands, trained for precision, for intervention, were tied. She was a woman, outranked, powerless to stop a man from inflicting unimaginable pain on another woman. A detainee she was responsible for. The screams escalated, then abruptly cut off, replaced by choked sobs and the guttural grunts of Shaheen. The sound of a girl breaking. The sound of pure evil. The small wooden lala felt cold and fragile in Marjan's clenching hand. Her perfect world had just shattered. Her core belief that she was protecting Iranian women, that she was upholding purity, evaporated in the face of those screams. What was pure about this? What was righteous about this violence? She had always believed the regime was flawed, yes, but fundamentally good, fundamentally just. This was not justice. This was barbarism, and she had been complicit. She had stood by. She had been ordered to leave. The hypocrisy of being a guardian of purity, while being forced to stand idly by as a male officer, brutalized a female detainee, a detainee her unit had apprehended, twisted in her gut like a knife. This was not the revolution she had served. This was not the protection she had dedicated her life to providing. This was a lie. The heavy steel door eventually opened. Major Shaheen emerged, adjusting his uniform, a thin smile playing on his lips. His eyes, devoid of any warmth, briefly met Marjan's. He said nothing, simply walked past her and her unit, leaving behind the stench of fear and the phantom echoes of Zara's cries. Inside, Zara lay huddled on the floor, barely conscious, her body trembling. Her clothes were torn. Her face was bruised. Marjan looked at her, then at her own trembling hands, at the little wooden bird clutched so tightly it dug into her palm. The bird, a symbol of her daughter's innocence, now felt like a condemnation. Her uniform, once a badge of honor, now felt like a shroud of shame. The entire structure of her belief system, the very foundation of her life, had collapsed. It dissolved into a sickening understanding of what she had truly become part of. Marjan didn't sleep that night. She lay next to Reza, who slept soundly, oblivious. The memory of Zara's cries replayed in her mind, a relentless, torturous loop. She stared at the ceiling of their bedroom in Mashhad, the familiar patterns of the plaster offering no comfort. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zara's defiant eyes, then her terror-stricken face. Every time she tried to rationalize it, to tell herself it was an isolated incident, a rogue officer, the cold, hard logic of her commander's silence, her own forced obedience, shattered the illusion. She had been ordered out. Her unit, an all-female unit, had been rendered powerless. The very system she served, which preached the protection and honor of women, had disarmed them, allowing a man to brutalize a girl. In the morning, she looked at Lala differently. Lala, bright-eyed, asking for nano paneer for breakfast, sketching cartoons in her notebook. Marjan saw the same youthful defiance, the same innocent spirit she had seen in Zara, before the screams. A wave of ice-cold fear washed over her. Was this the world she was building for her daughter? A world where purity was enforced through brutality, where women were both the enforcers and the victims, disposable at the whim of a male officer? The wooden lala she still clutched felt like a burning coal in her hand. It was no longer a symbol of protection, but a stark reminder of her failure, a failure to protect, not just Zara, but potentially Lala, from the very monster she had helped create. Over the next few days, Marjan moved through her duties like a ghost. She issued orders, attended briefings, but her mind was a whirlwind of internal agony. The faces of her unit members haunted her. She saw their questioning glances, their suppressed anger. They had seen it too. They had heard it too. The silence, the powerlessness, the profound shame. She realized her crisis of faith was not hers alone. This was a shared wound. a collective disillusionment for the Hafizan-e Taharat. The unit, once united by a shared, unwavering purpose, now carried a burden of unspoken horror. Marjan began to test the waters. She started with Zara Karimi, her most trusted lieutenant. They met for tea in a quiet chaikhane, far from their usual haunts. Marjan spoke indirectly at first, about the challenges of their work, the difficult decisions. Zara Karimi listened, her eyes downcast, stirring her tea slowly. Then, Marjan dropped the pretense. What happened with Zara? It was wrong. We were wrong to allow it. Zara Karimi looked up, her eyes wide, then narrowed with a fierce emotion. Captain, we were ordered. What choice did we have? Her voice was barely a whisper. The choice, Marjan replied, her own voice low, is to never let it happen again, to never be party to it again. She gauged the reactions. Zara Karimi confessed her own sleepless nights, the shame she felt. Other women in the unit, when approached cautiously, revealed similar sentiments. Some spoke of cousins, sisters, friends, who had been swept up in the protests, who had been re-educated in detention centers. They had always rationalized it, compartmentalized it, but now the lines had blurred. The faces of the victims were becoming too familiar. The ideals they served were dissolving into a bitter taste of hypocrisy. They had believed they were protecting, but they had become tools of oppression, even against their own will. The cracks in their collective belief system, once hairline fractures, now widened into gaping chasms. They were women, enforcing brutal rules against other women, only to find themselves powerless when male authority decided to unleash its own, darker brutality. The realization was sickening. Marjan understood then. She wasn't alone. Her unit, her sisters, shared this deep, burning disillusionment. They had served with unwavering loyalty. They had believed in the mission, but the mission had betrayed them. The regime had exposed its true face, ugly and brutal, using them as instruments while denying them true authority or dignity. The moral compromise was no longer sustainable. It had become a moral abyss. She knew then what she had to do. Not just for Zara, not just for Lala, but for all of them. For the very soul of the women she commanded. They had to leave. All of them. The plan began to form. A desperate, dangerous design etched in Marjan's mind during sleepless nights. Her first task was to secure the absolute loyalty of her unit. One by one, in hushed conversations in safe houses, over shared chai after late-night shifts, she laid out the truth, stripped bare of any comforting lies. She spoke of Zara, of the screams, of their powerlessness. She spoke of the rot at the heart of the system. She spoke of Lala, and of their own daughters, their own futures. 24 women, all highly trained, all previously unshakable, listened. They were not easily swayed. Their lives, their identities, were bound to the regime. But Marjan appealed to something deeper, their dignity as women, their instincts as mothers, their fundamental sense of justice that had been so profoundly violated. Some were terrified. The implications of defection were immense. Prison, torture, death for them and their families. But others, like Zara Karimi, were instantly resolute. "We cannot stay, Captain," Zara whispered, her face grim. "Not after what we saw. Not after what they made us do." Slowly, painstakingly, Marjan won them over. The shared trauma, the collective shame, forged a new, desperate loyalty among them. They were no longer the guardians of purity. They were women betrayed, and now they would act. All 25 of them. The escape route had to be unconventional. The Turkish and Iraqi borders were heavily monitored, particularly for high-value defectors. Marjan, drawing on her extensive intelligence background, began researching obscure routes, remote crossings. The eastern border, particularly with Turkmenistan and Afghanistan, was vast, desolate, and less patrolled for such specific threats. It was a perilous journey, through mountains and deserts, crossing multiple borders, relying on informal networks, but it was their best chance. It leveraged the very anonymity of the wild, untamed territories. They needed resources. Marjan initiated a series of false flag operations. She fabricated intelligence reports about a surge in illicit activities near the eastern border. securing authorization for her unit to conduct extended surveillance and anti-corruption patrols. This provided them with unmarked vehicles, extra fuel, rations, and most crucially, a legitimate reason to be near the border regions. They quietly diverted operational funds, enough to pay for smugglers, for safe passage through the lawless borderlands. They acquired false documents, not for themselves, but for contingency, small items of value to trade. Each woman, without telling their families, began to liquidate small personal assets, jewelry, savings, transforming them into easily transportable currency. They planned to leave behind everything material, carrying only what was essential, and the burning hope of freedom. The escape was scheduled for the first week of Bahman, 1401. A cold, moonless night was essential. Marjan coordinated with a known network of Balak smugglers, infamous for their discretion and ruthlessness. The details were ironed out in coded messages, through intermediaries Marjan had cultivated over years of intelligence work. The plan was precise: travel to the remote Khorasan borderlands, rendezvous with the smugglers, cross into Turkmenistan, then quickly into Afghanistan, and finally into Pakistan. A long, arduous journey that would take days, maybe weeks. Each step was fraught with unimaginable risk. Detection meant certain death, but the alternative, remaining in a system that had devoured their souls, was a slower, more agonizing death. Marjan felt a cold certainty. This was their only path. The night of Bahman III arrived, starless and frigid. A thin fog clung to the ground, obscuring the familiar landmarks of Mashhad. Marjan kissed Laleh goodbye, her daughter sleeping peacefully, oblivious. Reza was away on a provincial inspection. The weight of her secret, of her betrayal to her country, to her husband, pressed down on her. But the overwhelming resolve for Laleh's future pushed back harder. Marjan clutched the wooden Laleh in her pocket, its smooth surface now a beacon, not a burden. She met her unit at a prearranged rendezvous point, a deserted warehouse outside the city. Their faces were etched with a mixture of terror and grim determination. 25 women, each carrying a small, heavy backpack. Their uniforms were practical, dark, chosen for blending into the night. They carried their standard-issue pistols, a few extra magazines. No comms gear beyond secure, short-range encrypted radios. They moved with the silent discipline of their training, the very skills they had honed for the regime, now repurposed against it. 3 unmarked besieged patrol vehicles, requisitioned under false pretenses, waited. Marjan took the lead vehicle. Zahra Karimi was with her. The convoy moved out, slow and deliberate, heading east, away from the glittering dome of Imam Reza. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by the vast open darkness of the desert. The landscape grew stark, the air colder, drier. They drove for hours, through desolate plains and low rolling hills. The vehicle's headlights cut tunnels through the blackness. Each woman sat in silence, tense, listening to the hum of the engine, the crunch of gravel under the tires, their breaths condensed against the cold windows. Just after midnight, a checkpoint loomed ahead, a cluster of flickering lights in the distance. A chill stronger than the desert air ran down Marjan's spine. This was an IRGC checkpoint, well known for its strictness. They had anticipated this. Marjan slowed the lead vehicle. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She took a deep, steadying breath. "Radio's off," she whispered. "Lights on low beam." As they approached, a lone, heavily armed guard stepped out of the small booth, signaling them to stop. He carried an AK-47. His face was shadowed. Marjan lowered her window. The cold air rushed in. She put on her most authoritative voice, the voice she used when interrogating. "Captain Rahimi, Hafizan-e Taharat. We are on Special Ops Patrol, Eastern Sector." She presented her fabricated orders, a forged document with legitimate-looking stamps and signatures. The guard took the paper, his eyes flicking from the document to Marjan's face, then to the dark shapes of the other women in the vehicle. He shined a flashlight into the interior, its beam momentarily blinding. He looked at Zahra Karimi, then at the 2 women in the back seat. His gaze lingered. "Special ops, eh? Seems like a lot of women for a routine patrol captain." His tone was suspicious. Marjan held his gaze, her expression unyielding. "Our intelligence indicates female operatives are primary targets for infiltration, Sergeant. We are tracking a network." She leaned forward slightly. "This is highly sensitive. Are you cleared for this information?" Her words were a subtle threat, reminding him of her unit's secretive, high-level nature. The guard hesitated. He was Basij, but she outranked him, and her unit was known to report directly to higher echelons. He glanced at the document again, then at the other two vehicles, their engines idling silently in the dark. He seemed to weigh the risk of questioning an elite unit against the hassle of a detailed inspection. He grunted, then waved them through. Pass. Marjan felt a wave of adrenaline-fueled relief. She accelerated slowly. The guard, a small figure in her rearview mirror, faded into the night. She didn't breathe fully until they were several kilometers past the checkpoint. "Well done," Zara Karimi murmured, her voice shaky. The journey continued, the terrain becoming rougher. The asphalt gave way to dirt tracks, then to no tracks at all. They relied on GPS and Marjan's expert knowledge of the region, learned from years of studying maps and surveillance data. They navigated rocky ravines, sandy plains, and the low, scrubby hills that marked the approach to the Turkmenistan border. The moon, a sliver of silver, finally appeared, casting long, distorted shadows. They reached the designated rendezvous point just before dawn, a cluster of ancient, wind-battered rock formations. The air was still. A harsh, metallic taste of dust filled their mouths. They parked the vehicles among the rocks, camouflaging them as best they could. Marjan sent out two women as lookouts. They waited, nerves frayed, the silence broken only by the mournful howl of a distant jackal. Then, two figures emerged from the shadows, their silhouettes tall and lean against the faint light of the rising sun. Balak smugglers. Dark robes, weathered faces, eyes that held the wisdom of the desert and the cunning of survival. The initial exchange was tense. The lead smuggler, a man named Karim, was wary. 25 women. This is a big risk. Khanum. Marjan met his gaze directly. We understand the risks. The payment is agreed. She produced a satchel of reals and US dollars. Karim counted it quickly, his fingers deft. He nodded, a grudging acceptance. The border patrol is light tonight, but the desert, it bites deep. And the Turkmen guards, they shoot first. They abandoned their vehicles, taking only their backpacks and weapons. The walk began. They moved in a single file, following Karim and his associate. The ground was loose gravel, then soft sand, then sharp, jagged rocks. Every step was an effort. The sun climbed higher, relentless. The desert was a vast, unforgiving expanse, stretching to the horizon, a sea of brown and ochre. Marjan felt the heat beating down on her, sweat stinging her eyes. Her boots, designed for urban patrols, were not suited for this terrain. Her feet began to ache, then burn, but she pushed on, setting the pace, her eyes fixed on Karim's retreating back. They crossed into Turkmenistan just before noon, slipping through a gap in a rusted barbed wire fence. The land looked no different, but the air felt charged. They were in a foreign country, officially, a new danger. They walked for hours, fueled only by dry bread and water from their limited supply. Their muscles screamed, their throats were raw. Marjan saw the exhaustion in her women's faces, but also the grim resolve. No one complained. No one fell behind. As dusk approached, Karim led them to a hidden cave, a small dusty alcove in a rocky outcrop. They huddled inside, grateful for the shade and the temporary respite. Marjan distributed what little food remained. Just as they were about to settle, a sharp whistle pierced the air. Karim's head snapped up. "Patrol!" he hissed. "Turkmen, quickly hide!" Panic flared. They scrambled deeper into the cave, pressing themselves against the cold, rough rock. Marjan drew her pistol, flicking off the safety. Her heart pounded. Footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Voices, speaking a language she didn't understand, grew louder. A flashlight beam swept across the cave entrance, then dipped, then swept again. Marjan held her breath. The beam played over the rocks, inches from their faces. She could hear the heavy breathing of the women beside her. One young woman, Mina, began to tremble uncontrollably. Zara Karimi reached out, squeezing her arm, a silent anchor. The voices faded. The footsteps receded. Silence returned. They waited for what felt like an eternity before Karim deemed it safe. "They're gone. We move now. No rest." They emerged, shaken but unharmed, into the deepening twilight. The near miss galvanized them. The danger was real. They had chosen this. They walked through the night, pushing past exhaustion, past pain. The landscape blurred into a monotonous rhythm of sand and rock. Marjan's mind fixated on Lala, on the image of her daughter's smile, her freedom. The wooden Lala was still in her pocket, a constant reminder. They were crossing the vast, sparsely populated border into Afghanistan when the second crisis hit. Dawn was breaking, painting the eastern sky in fiery hues. They were traversing a wide open plateau. Suddenly, Karim stopped dead. He raised a hand. Hold. His eyes scanned the horizon. Riders. In the distance, a cluster of figures on horseback appeared, galloping towards them, kicking up plumes of dust. They were armed, heavily. Not border guards, bandits, or worse, local militia. Karim swore under his breath. They've been tipped off. Someone talked. A wave of betrayal washed over Marjan. The smugglers. They had sold them out. Prepare to engage, Marjan barked, her voice cutting through the panic. Her women, despite their exhaustion, snapped into formation, pistols drawn. They were soldiers. They were trained. But they were 25 women against perhaps 15 or 20 heavily armed men on horseback, in open ground. The odds were terrible. Scatter, Karim yelled. Run for the rocks. He pointed to a small, jagged line of boulders a few hundred meters away. We'll never make it, Zara Karimi shouted, her voice tight with fear. The riders were closing fast. Marjan made a split-second decision. No! We stand our ground. Fire on my command. Her voice was firm, resolute. She knew scattering meant being picked off one by one. Their only chance was to present a unified, disciplined front. She pulled out her pistol. Her women followed suit, aiming their weapons, their faces grim. The riders were now close enough to see their faces, hard and predatory. They carried old Kalashnikovs, RPGs slung across their backs. One, a burly man with a thick beard, laughed, a harsh guttural sound, and raised his rifle. They're just women. Take them. Fire! Marjan screamed. The sound of 25 pistols discharging simultaneously cracked through the morning air. A synchronized volley. The unexpected resistance, the sheer volume of fire, caught the lead riders by surprise. One horse whinnied, rearing up, its rider falling heavily to the ground. Another rider clutched his arm, yelling. The initial charge faltered. Marjan saw her chance. Advance! Suppressive fire! She pushed forward, firing methodically, aiming for the horses to unseat the riders. Her women moved with her, a disciplined line of fire, their training kicking in, overriding their fear. The bandits, expecting an easy target, found themselves facing a well-trained, desperate unit. They had underestimated the guardians of purity. The firefight was short, brutal. They kept firing, laying down continuous volleys, forcing the bandits to seek cover. The sheer audacity, the coordinated aggression was too much. The bandits, not expecting such a fight from just women, hesitated. They regrouped, then, after a brief, tense standoff, turned their horses and galloped away, leaving 2 injured men behind. Hold fire, Marjan ordered, her breathing ragged, her hand shaking slightly. Cease fire. Silence. The ringing in their ears was deafening. Dust settled. They had survived. They had fought back. They looked at each other, adrenaline coursing through them, then relief washing over their faces. Karim, Marjan said, turning to the smuggler. Who sold us out? Karim, pale but impressed, shook his head. Not my people, Khanum. This is Balakh land. These are local warlords. Someone saw you, someone talked. You are high value. He looked at Marjan with newfound respect. But you fight like men. Marjan glared at him. We fight like guardians. Now lead us to Pakistan. And no more surprises. The rest of the journey was a blur of exhaustion and heightened vigilance. They bypassed the injured bandits, not engaging further. They walked, then rode in a battered pickup truck provided by a more reliable contact of Karim's. They crossed into Pakistan under the cover of the next night, through a desolate, dusty border post that was barely more than a shack. The sense of profound relief was palpable. They were out. They were free. The Pakistani border post was a ramshackle collection of faded flags and sleepy guards. The air was thick with the scent of dust and something undefinable. Freedom, perhaps. Marjan stepped across the invisible line, her boots sinking slightly into the sandy soil of Pakistan. She felt the sun on her face, no longer an oppressive force, but a warm, gentle caress. The sky above was an endless, unburdened blue. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth soak into her skin, a physical manifestation of the immense weight that had lifted from her shoulders. She was outside. They were outside. All 25 of them. Her women followed, one by one, their faces a mixture of bone-deep exhaustion and burgeoning hope. Some stumbled, their legs giving out from under them after days of relentless walking. Others simply stopped, looking back at the hazy outline of the mountains they had just traversed, the last visible markers of Iran, a country that was no longer home, a country that had broken their hearts. Zahra Karimi stood beside Marjan, tears streaming down her dust-streaked cheeks. "We made it, Captain," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "By Allah, we made it." Marjan nodded, unable to speak, her own throat tight with a wave of conflicting emotions. Relief was paramount, a tidal wave washing over her, but it was tinged with a profound sadness. She had left everything behind, her home, her husband, her life. The scent of Mashhad, the sound of the adhan from the shrine, the familiar rhythm of a life she had dedicated to a false ideal. But then she thought of Zahra, of the screams, of Lala, and the sadness receded, replaced by a fierce resolve. This was the price of true purity. This was the cost of real freedom. The Pakistani border guards, a couple of young, bewildered-looking men, stared at the arrival of 25 heavily armed Iranian women in uniform. They were clearly not expecting this. Karim, the smuggler, stepped forward, speaking rapidly in a mix of Balochi and Urdu, gesturing towards Marjan. The guards, after an initial flurry of confusion, cautiously approached. Marjan, ever the commander, stepped forward, her pistol now holstered, her demeanor calm but firm. She introduced herself, omitting her rank and unit, identifying them simply as Iranian women seeking asylum. She explained their plight briefly, concisely, focusing on the brutal realities they had escaped. The guards, after some consultation, led them to a small, dusty office. The process was slow, bureaucratic, conducted with weary resignation rather than hostility. They were debriefed, their weapons confiscated, their stories taken down. They were refugees now. Marjan sat on a hard wooden bench watching her women as they were processed. Their uniforms, once a symbol of authority, were now just travel-stained clothes. Their faces, once stern and disciplined, now showed the raw vulnerability of escape. Yet there was also a newfound lightness in their eyes, a glimmer of something Marjan had not seen in them for a very long time, genuine hope. The wooden lala was still in her pocket. She took it out, rolling it between her thumb and forefinger. It felt different now, no longer a condemnation, but a promise of a future where Lala would never know the fear and brutality they had witnessed. They spent several days in a small, crowded refugee camp, a temporary limbo of tents and communal meals. The food was bland, the conditions basic, but it was safe. There were no orders, no interrogations, no forced silences. Marjan watched her women begin to shed the rigid posture of their former lives. They spoke freely, sharing stories of their escape, of their fears, of their hopes. They were still a unit, a sisterhood forged in fire, but now they were a unit seeking healing, seeking a new purpose. The camaraderie remained, but its foundation had shifted from loyalty to the regime to loyalty to each other, to their shared truth. Marjan finally allowed herself to truly rest, to sleep without the phantom screams echoing in her mind. The desert wind still blew, but now it sounded like a lullaby, not a warning. The world outside Iran was vast and bewildering. Marjan and her women eventually found their way to a resettlement program, facilitated by international aid organizations, first to Europe, then finally to Canada. The adjustment was immense. Everything was different. The language, the customs, the food, the very air. They shed their uniforms, adopting civilian clothes, learning to navigate grocery stores instead of surveillance routes. Marjan worked diligently to learn English, to understand this new society. She found work in a community center, helping other refugees, her sharp mind and organizational skills finding a new, constructive outlet. Lala joined her months later, an emotional reunion that brought Marjan to her knees. Her daughter, initially shy and overwhelmed by the vast changes, slowly began to blossom. Marjan watched Lala explore this new world, free to choose her clothes, to express her opinions, to pursue any dream without fear of reprisal. She saw Lala laugh, a joyous, uninhibited sound she realized had been muted in Iran. This was the true purity Marjan had sought. This was the protection she had failed to provide in Iran. Her unit, her 24 sisters, found their own paths. Some pursued education, others started small businesses, some reunited with family members who had long ago left Iran. They kept in touch, a network of resilient women, sharing their struggles and triumphs. They met regularly, a silent understanding passing between them, a shared history that bound them together more tightly than any uniform ever could. They often spoke of the past, of the horror they had witnessed, of the betrayal. They never regretted their decision. They mourned the loss of their homeland, but they embraced the boundless expanse of their new freedom. Marjan, now Marjan Rahimi, a former captain of the Guardians of Purity, often thought of Zara, the young woman whose screams had shattered her world. She hoped Zara had survived. She hoped Zara, too, might one day find her own freedom. Marjan knew her escape was a seismic event, a clear message to the regime that even its most trusted enforcers could be broken by its own brutality. She believed their story, the defection of Iran's most feared female unit, would resonate. It was not just their story. It was the story of all Iranian women, fighting for their dignity, their freedom, their very souls. Her wooden lala sat on her nightstand now, a tangible link to her past, a quiet reminder of the terrible choice she had made and the beautiful freedom it had brought. Would you have done the same? Tell me in the comments.